Hi, Nancy Kino here, and I'm here to talk about the student engagement technique number 25 on page 259 of the textbook, which is the think aloud problem solving. In this technique, students are given a problem to solve and are given a specific role. So one student is given the role of the problem solver and the other is the listener. And the role of the problem solver is to read the problem aloud and then talk through their logic as they solve the problem. The role of the listener is to reflect on the information that the problem solver is giving them. They may ask questions for clarification and maybe guide the problem solver, but they would be refraining from actually helping the problem solver solve the problem. I wasn't aware of this technique, but after I read it, I realized that I've actually used it in my accounting for non-accountants class last semester. It was a video conference class, so it wasn't something I did at the beginning of the semester, but towards the end, after my students were well practiced in kind of how we solve accounting problems, I would assign a location, a problem to solve, and they would talk through either as a group or one student would volunteer, the one more comfortable with speaking aloud. So this would get around the issue in this technique with people that are uncomfortable speaking aloud or having their logic, I guess, listened to by others. So the location would solve the problem and the rest of us would listen. And then we'd switch. And sometimes I would make it fun. Sometimes I would ask for volunteers to think aloud. And then other times we would shake dice and whatever location got picked, so they would have to present. Locations that had maybe only one person, I would pair them up with some other of the smaller locations, so that gave that element where people that weren't comfortable with this type of technique could kind of refrain. So an example of a problem, I didn't have to create my own problems. I think the technique and the steps in the book tell you have to create the problems, distribute the role. In my case, we use the practice problems at the end of the book. For instance, it would maybe Nancy owns a yoga shop. She went and purchased several items. What is the net effect on the income statement? So the students would first have to figure out, what transactions occurred, what accounts were affected, whether that effect was an increase or a decrease, and then which ones needed to get added together to solve the problem. So that would be an example in my class of how I used the Think Aloud pair solving problem.